Some characters are played, others are lived, and then some settle deep inside an actor's bones, changing them, breaking them, becoming a second skin over years. Decades, a second life for Cillian Murphy. Tommy Shelby wasn't a role, it was a reckoning, a transformation, a mirror. And now, after more than a decade inside the smoke-choked, razor-blade-lined world of Peaky Blinders, Murphy has stepped back, taken a breath, and said something that stopped everyone in their tracks. I've spent a quarter of my life being Tommy Shelby. This wasn't just a reflection, it was a confession, not of regret, but of weight. Because what do you become when you spend that much time pretending to be a man who carries grief like armor and ambition like poison? When Peaky Blinders first aired in 2013, no one, not even Murphy, could have imagined how far it would go. Just 6 episodes. Just a little BBC drama about post-war Birmingham. But beneath the storyline, beneath the flat caps and filtered noir, was a world of fire slowly catching wind, and, at the center of it, stood a character, Tommy. Intelligent, ruthless, quiet. Enough to scare a room. Brilliant. Enough to run an empire, and broken enough to never really know peace. Cillian didn't just act that role, he embodied it. Year after year, he transformed, dropping weight, cutting his hair short, learning to walk differently, talk slower, think deeper. But that transformation came with a price. For more than 10 years, Cillian Murphy lived in 2 worlds. Offset, he was a devoted father, a modest man who avoided the press and still took the train to work. On set, he was Tommy Shelby, and how do you not carry that home? You can't live in that headspace forever, Murphy admitted in a recent interview. The solitude of the character. It gets into your soul. He wasn't just playing a gangster. He was channeling something darker, closer to trauma than to performance. For 6 seasons, we watched Tommy rise from nothing to become one of the most iconic, complicated figures in modern television. A man torn between his demons and his duty. A man trying to outrun the war in his head. And with each chapter, we wondered how much of Tommy was Cillian and how much of Cillian had become Tommy. Over time, the line blurred. Fans noticed it, critics praised it, and cast members spoke of it reverently. How Cillian, quiet as he was, carried the entire room just by being there. But now, as production for the long-awaited Peaky Blinders movie grows closer, Murphy is taking a rare and vulnerable pause. He's not just looking forward, he's looking back to what it all meant, to what it cost. It's only when you stop that you feel the full weight of it, he said. The years, the transformation, the stories we told, the people we lost, and then, gently, almost whispering, it's a quarter of your life, isn't it? Think about that. Not just a role you play, not just another show, but an artistic journey that becomes a full quarter of your entire lifetime. Your youth, your middle age, your growth, your grief. Cut to a montage. The evolution of Cillian Murphy's face, from the youthful energy of early seasons to the distant, haunted stare of season 6. It wasn't just the character that changed. Over time, it was him. And as Murphy prepares to step back one last time into Tommy Shelby's soul for the upcoming film, he does so with the awareness of legacy. And perhaps a little bit of fear. Because how do you close a decade-long chapter without tearing a piece of yourself off with it? The loss of Helen McCrory, that was one of the deepest wounds. Murphy has spoken often, but never too long, about how her absence left a hollow that nothing could fill. She was the matriarch, not just on screen. In all of it, she guided us through this story. Polly Gray was never just fiction, and her ghost hangs heavy over what's to come. So now we wait, not just for another Drama, not just for a film continuation, but for a closing act, a final movement in a symphony that Cillian Murphy has orchestrated alongside heartbreak and brilliance. He says the script is nearly there, that it will be personal, that it will be true, and maybe most importantly, that it will be the end Tommy Shelby deserves. But whether it delivers blood or redemption, silence or sky and thing is certain. Cillian Murphy is saying goodbye with intention, with gravity, with the grace of an artist who knows that some roles aren't finished with a cut and a wrap party. They finish when the character lets you go. And that doesn't happen often. Not when you've been feeding it for a quarter of your life. As we look ahead to the Peaky Blinders film, we prepare not just to revisit old stories but to bury them, to send Tommy into legend, not as a gangster, but as a haunted, brilliant, impossible man who tried just once to outrun the fire. And when that final scene fades, when the razor is left behind and the boots step quietly into myth, we'll remember not just the man in the story but the man who carried it for years for us and for our Cillian. Murphy didn't just play Tommy Shelby. He became him, and now, one last time, Tommy Shelby will become ours again for the final act, for legacy. But this time feels different. There's something unmistakably fragile about walking onto a set you haven't seen in years, especially when it's a set that saw you grow, stretch, hurt, and transform into someone the world couldn't forget. Even if you tried. As Cillian Murphy quietly begins preparation for the Peaky Blinders movie, stepping back into the world that defined a generation. He isn't just revisiting a role, he's closing a chapter of his life. It's surreal, he recently admitted. You don't realize how deeply rooted that character becomes in you until you try to walk away. For most actors, you finish a role and move on, but Tommy Shelby doesn't let go. He waits in the quiet corners, still calculating, still haunted, still unfinished. Murphy knew deep down that this film had to happen, not for popularity, not for plot lines, but for peace. There was more to say, he said softly, and we owed it to the character not just to shut the door, but to close it with care. That word, care. You'll hear it more and more from Murphy, because this isn't just about wrapping up a successful show. It's about honoring legacy, and legacy often means pain. The day Helen McCrory passed, everything changed. Polly Gray wasn't just an essential piece of Peaky Blinders. She was the steel thread running through every season. The matriarch, the fury, the conscience, and Cillian was the heartbeat. He's opened up about how deeply Helen's loss impacted him, not just as a co-star, but as a friend whose strength and wisdom guided every table read, every scene, every hard moment through those chaotic shoot schedules. She had this incredible way of grounding everyone. She was fierce, funny, effortless. Losing her left a space. And that space is still here. The final season was written awkwardly and achingly around her absence. Her presence was felt even in her silence. But now, with one last opportunity to tell this story, Murphy has a Cenchetto honor her properly. The Peaky Blinders film will not be a rehash of the past. It isn't designed to retell what we already know. It's a requiem, not just for characters who didn't survive, but for a version of Cillian that lived inside a man named Tommy Shelby. There's a weight behind every word, every pause, every movement. Because for over 10 years, this character spoke with minimalist intensity, sharp, sparse, like he was always dancing, with rage just beneath the surface. But now, Tommy's older, smarter, weary in a way that bullets can't explain, and so is Cillian. So, what do you become when your greatest performance is also your most personal wound? Perhaps that's where art lives, in the friction between admiration and exhaustion. Because Tommy Shelby isn't just brilliant, he's damaged, and for over a decade. Cillian carried that damage. He let it build inside him. He let it settle behind his eyes, in the hollowness of his voice, in the way he could disappear into silence and still command the room. Ask his co-stars. They'll tell you Cillian wouldn't break character. Not because he was trying to be difficult, but because he had to stay there, or it would fall apart. Not many actors can pull that off, but not many roles carry this much psychological depth. And now, imagine returning to that after years away. After transformation. At the peak of your craft, fresh off an Oscar win, fresh off an artistic high-end. Still choosing Tommy. Why? Because Murphy doesn't want the character to end in ambiguity. He doesn't want fans left with question marks. He wants something definitive, a line in the sand, a scene strong, enough to settle the ghosts. So what does the goodbye look like? We don't know, and maybe we're not supposed to. But what we do know, from whispers inside production, early comments from creator Stephen Knight, and Murphy's own rare glimpses, is that this film will be a swan song. Somber, majestic, drenched in reflection, not just of the character, but of the man who wore that character like a second soul for over a quarter of his lifetime. This journey wasn't just storytelling, it was personal evolution. Now, there's something poetic about Murphy ending it his way, choosing the final words, guiding the legacy with the same precision and creative integrity he's carried. Since day one, he's not building to an explosion. He's building to closure, and when the credits roll on this final act, we'll see it clearly that Murphy didn't just give us one of the greatest performances in TV history. He gave us years of layered honesty, years of pain disguised as power, loneliness disguised as leadership. Hey man, forever on the edge. And he gave it quietly, without self-congratulation, which, ever demanding to be praised. Some roles change your career, some change your craft. But once in a rare, wily, a role changes your life. For Cillian Murphy, that role was Tommy Shelby on Sun. Just one more time, he'll say goodbye, not with fire, but with the echo of a man stepping out of the smoke and leaving the razor blades behind.